Hebrew Melodies by George Gordon Lord Byron. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Hebrew Melodies by George Gordon Lord Byron. She walks in beauty. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. End of poem. Read by Mapstone. The Harp, the Monarch, Minstrel, Wept by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The harp, the monarch, minstrel, wept, the king of men, the loved of heaven, which music hallowed while she wept, or tones her heart of hearts had given, redoubled be her tears, its chords are riven. It softened men of iron mould, it gave them virtues not their own. No ear so dull, no soul so cold, that felt not, fired not to the tone, till David's lyre grew mightier than his throne. It told the triumphs of our King, it wafted glory to our God. It made our gladdened valleys ring, the cedars bow, the mountains nod. Its sound aspired to heaven, and there abode. Since then, though heard on earth no more, devotion and her daughter love still bid the bursting spirit soar to sounds that seem as from above, in dreams that day's broad light cannot remove. End of poem. If That High World by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. If that high world which lies beyond our own surviving love endears, if there the cherished heart be fond, the eye the same, except in tears, how welcome those untrodden spheres! How sweet this very hour to die, to soar from earth and find all fears lost in thy light, eternity. It must be so. 'Tis not for self that we so tremble on the brink, and striving to o'erleap the gulf, yet cling to being's severing link. Oh, in that future let us think, to hold each heart the heart that shares with them the immortal waters drink, and soul in soul grows deathless theirs. End of poem. The Wild Gazelle by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The wild gazelle on Judah's hills, exulting yet may bound, and drink from all the living rills that gush on holy ground. Its airy step and glorious eye may glance in tameless transport by. A step as fleet, an eye more bright, hath Judah witnessed there, and o'er her scenes of lost delight, inhabitants more fair. The cedars wave on Lebanon, but Judah's statelier maids are gone. More blessed each palm that shades those plains than Israel's scattered race. For taking root it there remains in solitary grace. It cannot quit its place of birth, it will not live in other earth. But we must wander witheringly in other lands to die, and where our fathers' ashes be, our own may never lie. Our temple hath not left a stone, and mockery sits on Salem's throne. End of poem. Oh, Weep for Those by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Oh, weep for those that wept by Babel's stream, whose shrines are desolate, whose land a dream. Weep for the harp of Judah's broken shell, mourn, where their gods hath dwelt, the godless dwell. And where shall Israel lave her bleeding feet? And when shall Zion's songs again seem sweet, and Judah's melody once more rejoice the hearts that leapt before its heavenly voice? Tribes of the wandering foot and weary breast, how shall ye flee away and be at rest? The wild dove hath her nest, the fox his cave, mankind their country, Israel but a grave. End of poem. On Jordan's Banks by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. On Jordan's banks the Arabs' camels stray, on Sion's hill the false one's votaries pray, the Baal adorer bows on Sinai's steep, yet there, even there, O God, thy thunders sleep. There, where thy finger scorched the tablet stone, there, where thy shadow to thy people shone, thy glory shrouded in its garb of fire, thyself none living see and not expire. Oh, in the lightning let thy glance appear, sweep from his shivered hand the oppressor's spear. How long by tyrants shall thy land be trod? How long thy temple worshipless, O God? End of poem. Jephtha's Daughter by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Since our country, our God, O my sire, demand that thy daughter expire, since thy triumph was bought by thy vow. Strike the bosom that's bared for thee now, and the voice of my mourning is o'er, and the mountains behold me no more. If the hand that I love lay me low, there cannot be pain in the blow. And of this, O my father, be sure, that the blood of thy child is as pure as the blessing I beg ere it flow, and the last thought that soothes me below. Though the virgins of Salem lament, be the judge and the hero unbent, I have won the great battle for thee, and my father and country are free. When this blood of thy giving hath gushed, when the voice that thou lovest is hushed, let my memory still be thy pride, and forget not I smiled as I died. End of poem. Oh, Snatched Away in Beauty's Bloom by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Oh, snatched away in beauty's bloom, on thee shall press no ponderous tomb. But on thy turf shall roses rear their leaves the earliest of the year, and the wild cypress wave in tender gloom. And off by yon blue gushing stream shall sorrow lean her drooping head, and feed deep thought with many a dream, and lingering pause and lightly tread, fond wretch, as if her step disturbed the dead. Away, we know that tears are vain, that death nor heeds nor hears distress. Will this unteach us to complain, or make one mourner weep the less? And thou, who tell'st me to forget, thy looks are wan, thine eyes are wet. End of poem. My Soul is Dark by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. My soul is dark, oh quickly string the harp I yet can brook to hear, and let thy gentle fingers fling its melting murmurs o'er mine ear. If in this heart a hope be dear, that sound shall charm it forth again. If in these eyes there lurk a tear, 'twill flow, and cease to burn my brain. But bid the strain be wild and deep, nor let thy notes of joy be first. I tell thee, minstrel, I must weep, or else this heavy heart will burst. For it hath been by sorrow nursed, and ached in sleepless silence long, and now 'tis doomed to know the worst, and break at once, or yield to song. End of poem. I Saw Thee Weep by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. I saw thee weep, the big bright tear came o'er that eye of blue, and then methought it did appear a violet dropping dew. I saw thee smile, the sapphire's blaze beside thee ceased to shine. It could not match the living rays that filled that glance of thine. As clouds from yonder sun receive a deep and mellow dye, which scarce the shade of coming eve can banish from the sky. Those smiles unto the moodiest mind their own pure joy impart. Their sunshine leaves a glow behind that lightens o'er the heart. End of poem. Thy Days Are Done by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Thy days are done, thy fame begun. Thy country's strains record the triumphs of her chosen son, the slaughters of his sword, the deeds he did, the fields he won, the freedom he restored. Though thou art fallen while we are free, thou shalt not taste of death. The generous blood that flowed from thee disdained to sink beneath. Within our veins its currents be, thy spirit on our breath. Thy name our charging hosts along shall be the battle word. Thy fall the theme of choral song from virgin voices poured. To weep would do thy glory wrong, thou shalt not be deplored. End of poem. It Is the Hour by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. It is the hour when from the boughs the nightingale's high note is heard. It is the hour when lovers' vows seem sweet in every whispered word, and gentle winds and waters near make music to the lonely ear. Each flower the dews have lightly wet, and in the sky the stars are met, and on the wave is deeper blue, and on the leaf a browner hue, and in the heaven that clear obscure, so softly dark and darkly pure, that follows the decline of day, as twilight melts beneath the moon away. End of poem. Song of Saul Before His Last Battle by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Warriors and chiefs, should the shaft or the sword pierce me in leading the host of the Lord, heed not the course, though a king's in your path. Bury your steel in the bosoms of Gath. Thou who art bearing my buckler and bow, should the soldiers of Saul look away from the foe, stretch me that moment in blood at thy feet. Mine be the doom which they dared not to meet. Farewell to others, but never we part. Heir to my royalty, son of my heart. Bright is the diadem, boundless the sway, or kingly the death which awaits us today. End of poem. Saul by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 1. Thou whose spell can raise the dead, bid the prophet's form appear. Samuel, raise thy buried head. King, behold the phantom seer. Earth yawned, he stood the centre of a cloud, light changed its hue, retiring from his shroud. Death stood all glassy in his fixed eye, his hand was withered and his veins were dry, his foot in bony whiteness glittered there, shrunken and sinewless and ghastly bare. From lips that move not and unbreathing frame, like caverned winds the hollow accents came. Saul, Saul, and fell to earth as falls the oak at once, and blasted by the thunder stroke. 2. Why is my sleep disquieted? Who is he that calls the dead? Is it thou, O King? Behold, bloodless are these limbs and cold. Such are mine, and such shall be thine tomorrow when with me. Ere the coming day is done, such shalt thou be, such thy son. Fare thee well, but for a day, then we mix our mouldering clay. Thou, thy race, lie pale and low, pierced by shafts of many a bow, and the falchions by thy side to thy heart thy hand shall guide. Crownless, breathless, headless fall, son and sire, the house of Saul. End of poem. All is Vanity, saith the Preacher, by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Fame, wisdom, love, and power were mine, and health and youth possessed me. My goblets blushed from every vine, and lovely forms caressed me. I summed my heart in beauty's eyes, and felt my soul grow tender. All earth can give, or mortal prize, was mine of regal splendour. I strive to number all what days remembrance can discover, which all that life or earth displays would lure me to live over. There rose no day, there rolled no hour of pleasure unembittered, and not a trapping decked my power that galled not while it glittered. The serpent of the field by art and spells is won from harming, but that which coils around the heart, oh, who hath power of charming? It will not list to wisdom's lore, nor music's voice can lure it, but there it stings for evermore the soul that must endure it. End of poem. When Coldness Wraps This Suffering Clay, by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. When coldness wraps this suffering clay, ah, whither strays the immortal mind? It cannot die, it cannot stay, but leaves its darkened dust behind. Then, unembodied, doth it trace by steps each planet's heavenly way, or fill at once the realms of space, a thing of eyes that all survey. Eternal, boundless, undecayed, a thought unseen, but seeing all in earth or skies displayed, shall it survey, shall it recall. Each fainter trace that memory holds, so darkly of departed years, in one broad glance the soul beholds, and all that was at once appears. Before creation peopled earth, its eye shall roll through chaos back, and where the furthest heaven had birth, the spirit trace its rising track. And where the future mars or makes, its glances dilate o'er all to be, while sun is quenched or system breaks, fixed in its own eternity. Above, or love, hope, hate, or fear, it lives all passionless and pure. An age shall fleet like earthly year, its years as moments shall endure. Away, away, without a wing, o'er all, through all, its thought shall fly, a nameless and eternal thing, forgetting what it was to die. End of poem. Vision of Belshazzar by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The king was on his throne, the satraps thronged the hall, 1,000 bright lamps shone o'er that high festival. 1,000 cups of gold, in Judah deemed divine, Jehovah's vessels hold the godless heathens' wine. In that same hour and hall, the fingers of a hand came forth against the wall, and wrote as if on sand. The fingers of a man, a solitary hand, along the letters ran, and traced them like a wand. The monarch saw and shook, and bade no more rejoice. All bloodless waxed his look, and tremulous his voice. Let the men of lore appear, the wisest of the earth, and expound the words of fear, which mar our royal mirth. Chaldea's seers are good, but here they have no skill, and the unknown letters stood, untold and awful still. And Babel's men of age are wise and deep in lore, but now they were not sage, they saw, but knew no more. A captive in the land, a stranger and a youth, he heard the king's command, he saw that writing's truth. The lamps around were bright, the prophecy in view. He read it on that night, the morrow proved it true. Belshazzar's grave is made, his kingdom passed away. He in the balance weighed is light and worthless clay. The shroud, his robe of state, his canopy the stone, the Mede is at his gate, the Persian on his throne. End of poem. Son of the Sleepless by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Son of the sleepless, melancholy star, whose tearful beam glows tremulously far, that shows the darkness thou canst not dispel, how like art thou to joy remembered well? So gleams the past, the light of other days, which shines but warms not with its powerless rays. A night beam sorrow watcheth to behold, distinct but distant, clear, but oh, how cold. End of poem. Were my bosom as false as thou deem'st it to be, by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Were my bosom as false as thou deem'st it to be, I need not have wandered from far Galilee. It was but abjuring my creed to efface the curse which, thou sayest, is the crime of my race. If the bad never triumph, then God is with thee. If the slave only sin, thou art spotless and free. If the exile on earth is an outcast on high, live on in thy faith, but in mine I will die. I have lost for that faith more than thou canst bestow, as the God who permits thee to prosper doth know. In his hand is my heart and my hope, and in thine the land and the life which for him I resign. End of poem. Herod's Lament for Mariamne by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. O Mariamne, now for thee the heart for which thou bledst is bleeding. Revenge is lost in agony, and wild remorse to rage succeeding. O Mariamne, where art thou? Thou canst not hear my bitter pleading. Ah, couldst thou, thou wouldst pardon now, though heaven were to my prayer unheeding. And is she dead? And did they dare obey my frenzy's jealous raving? My wrath but doomed my own despair, the sword that smote her's o'er me waving. But thou art cold, my murdered love, and this dark heart is vainly craving for her who soars alone above, and leaves my soul unworthy saving. She's gone who shared my diadem, she sunk with her my joys entombing. I swept that flower from Judah's stem, whose leaves for me alone were blooming, and mine's the guilt, and mine the hell, this bosom's desolation dooming, and I have earned those tortures well, which, unconsumed, are still consuming. End of poem. On the Day of the Destruction of Jerusalem by Titus, by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. From the last hill that looks on thy once holy dome, I beheld thee, O Sion, when rendered to Rome. 'Twas the last sun went down, and the flames of thy fall flashed back on the last glance I gave to thy wall. I looked for thy temple, I looked for my home, and forgot for a moment my bondage to come. I beheld but the death fire that fed on thy fane, and the fast-fettered hands that made vengeance in vain. On many an eve the high spot whence I gazed had reflected the last beam of day as it blazed, while I stood on the heights and beheld the decline of the rays from the mountain that shone on thy shrine. And now on that mountain I stood on that day, but I marked not the twilight beam melting away. Oh, would that the lightning had glared in its stead, and the thunderbolt burst on the conqueror's head! But the gods of the pagan shall never profane the shrine where Jehovah disdains not to reign, and scattered and scorned as thy people may be, our worship, O Father, is only for thee. End of poem. By the rivers of Babylon we sat down and wept, by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. We sate down and wept by the waters of Babel, and thought of the day when our foe, in the hue of his slaughters, made Salem's high places his prey. And ye, O her desolate daughters, were scattered all weeping away. While sadly we gazed on the river, which rolled on in freedom below, they demanded the song, but oh never that triumph the stranger shall know. May this right hand be withered for ever, ere it string our high harp for the foe. On the willow that harp is suspended. O Salem, its sound should be free, and the hour when thy glories were ended but left me that token of thee. And ne'er shall its soft tones be blended with the voice of the spoiler by me. End of poem. The Destruction of Semnacherib by George Gordon Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold, and the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea, when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that host with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn hath blown, that host on the morrow lay withered and strown. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast, and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. And the eyes of the sleepers waxed deadly and chill, and their hearts but once heaved, and for ever grew still. And there lay the steed with his nostril all wide, but through it there rolled not the breath of his pride. And the foam of his gasping lay white on the turf, and cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. and there lay the rider distorted and pale, with the dew on his brow and the rust on his mail. And the tents were all silent, the banners alone, the lances unlifted, the trumpets unblown. And the widows of Asher are loud in their wail, and the idols are broke in the temple of Baal. And the might of the Gentile, unsmote by the sword, hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord. End of poem. From Job by George Gordon, Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. A spirit passed before me. I beheld the face of immortality unveiled. Deep sleep came down on every eye save mine, and there it stood, all formless but divine. Along my bones the creeping flesh did quake, and as my damp hair stiffened, thus it spake. Is man more just than God? Is man more pure than he who deems even seraphs insecure? Creatures of clay, vain dwellers in the dust, the moth survives you, and are ye more just? Things of a day, you wither ere the night, heedless and blind to wisdom's wasted light. End of poem. Lines on the death of Sir Peter Parker, Baronet, by George Gordon, Lord Byron. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. There is a tear for all that die, a mourner o'er the humblest grave. But nations swell the funeral cry, and triumph weeps above the brave. For them is sorrow's purest sigh, o'er ocean's heaving bosom sent. In vain their bones unburied lie, all earth becomes their monument. A tomb is theirs on every page, an epitaph on every tongue. The present hours, the future age, for them bewail, to them belong. For them the voice of festal mirth grows hushed, their name the only sound, while deep remembrance pours to worth the goblet's tributary round. A theme to crowds that knew them not, lamented by admiring foes, who would not share their glorious lot, who would not die the death they chose. And gallant Parker, thus enshrined, thy life, thy fall, thy fame shall be, and early valour glowing find a model in thy memory. But there are breasts that bleed with thee in woe that glory cannot quell, and shuddering hear of victory where one so dear, so dauntless fell. Where shall they turn to mourn thee less, when cease to hear thy cherished name? Time cannot teach forgetfulness, while grief's full heart is fed by fame. Alas for them, though not for thee, they cannot choose but weep the more. Deep for the dead the grief must be, who ne'er gave cause to mourn before. End of poem. Read by Mapstone in Oxford, England. End of Hebrew Melodies by George Gordon Lord Byron.